Hey y'all, Future Kym popping in here to tell you that I took a vote on the community tab because of the length the video was coming to. So I'm actually going to split it into part 1 and part 2. So as you're watching this video and I keep talking about getting on to making the sourdough, well, we're actually going to do that in part 2. So I will see you all in part 2 as well with that sourdough baking. Well, welcome YouTube friends and family to today's bread adventures of the Wellness Homesteader. Today we're going to be working with sourdough. Now this video I'm going to film throughout the day, so my appearance will deteriorate, just expect that. But I've been getting a lot of questions about, okay, now I have a healthy sourdough starter. I want to use it. What do I do? So it's time to talk about how to make true sourdough bread. So I thought I would show you where I am on both of my starters and what I plan to do. Now hang on, I forgot my stirrer thing. Oh, I need two of them, don't I? Okay. So I have taken both Winston, who is a rye sourdough starter, and Herman, which is Miss Lori over at Whippoorwill Holler's recipe. They're out of the refrigerator. I've actually been feeding Winston for a couple of days because I have an event coming up this weekend. I'm teaching a soap making class here at my house and I want to make some sourdough. So I have bulked up the amount of starter by just feeding it and not doing any pour off. Miss Lori's has been in the fridge and it's ready to be fed. So let me grab my two starters. That's Herman, the all-purpose flour one, and I will show you what I'm going to do and just explain what we're going to be doing throughout the day. I hope you'll stay tuned. Y'all. So I tried not to disturb this, but this is what Miss Lori's all-purpose flour starter looks like. And let me just share with you, as your starter is matured and you store it in the fridge, you're going to get this liquid. Sorry guys, I forgot and started the dishwasher. I know, amazing, I'm actually using the dishwasher. I try to use it like once a month. But everything I read says you should pour this off. So we're going to start by pouring that liquid off as best we can. Yeah, there we go. And we're down to pretty much just the starter. Now, Miss Lori's method, she just did like half a cup of flour, half a cup of water. You know, she didn't use the scale. Because I had to get the scale out, I decided I'm going to just scale it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add 100 grams of water and 100 grams of AP flour. And then I'm going to put Herman back in its warm place. Even though it's gotten a lot warmer here in Ohio, oddly warmer, my house is still cold, as the heat cuts on when I say that. It is only, well, it's 40 degrees. That's pretty warm. Definitely warm for Ohio at this time of the year. So you could do the measurement part. You can do the half a cup system, or you can do what I'm doing and just measure it. I don't think it really matters. I want to give this a really good stir. And this is a half-gallon mason jar. This is what we have used from the start, so I've never changed jars for this. The smell. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, and this is no criticism of Miss Lori. Love her channel, love the things she makes. I have just never had good success with an AP flour starter, other than the one my mom gave me, which was, you know, she gave me already started starter, so all I had to do is feed it. So let's make sure we're good and stirred up. And what I will do is put it back to bed. We're gonna feed Winston our rye starter next. And then I want to talk a little bit about why I'm feeding them and putting them back in a warm place instead of using pour off to make bread. So let me put him away. We'll get started on Winston. Y'all, look at Mr. Happy Winston. See the bubbly goodness? So even though he was refrigerated, he definitely has woken up, and total different smell, y'all. It's a yeasty, not real boozy, a little bit fermenty smell. And yeah, I mean, he's gonna deflate some, of course, when I get the air out. I hate this spatula. Y'all, there's some country terms that occasionally will slip out of my mouth, and it's not that I don't know how to speak properly. It's just that's what I grew up, you know, hearing. So I've got him stirred down. Got a lot of flour on the jar. And this is a Le Parfait liter. So it's a big boy jar, but that's my honest plan, just to be honest, is to maintain Winston, and I will probably use up the all-purpose flour starter because I like the taste of this better. So, time to open a new distilled water. I'm so excited, y'all. Thursday, because my water softener quit working. Not excited about that. I am getting a whole house filter, #1, and a RO, or reverse osmosis spigot. So I will no longer have to worry about buying distilled water. So that's going to be a great thing for me. Okay. I didn't use all that. So I'm actually going to feed him 200. I'm not going to do any pour off whatsoever because I need a lot of sourdough start for, wow, I'm so bad at pouring this, for what I'm going to be making. I want to do some crackers for the party, and I also, or it's not a party, for the class. And I also want to do some breads, you know, all the things, right? So I'm actually going to feed him 200. I fed him 100 the first day, 200 yesterday, and he's going to get 200 of flour. And this again is raw flour. Guys, I am down to about 12 pounds of raw flour left. So I'm going to have to place an order pretty soon. I haven't finished my Azure order for the week, so, or for the month, excuse me. So it'll be a good time to just add that to the order. My little girly girls have been eating a lot because they can't free range when it's this cold and icy and wet. Well, they could. I mean, a lot of people still do that, but I'm not going to, because mine are a little bit small. Just saying. I had a I didn't latch the gate to their coop when I put them to bed, and I happened to look out, and I'm like, why are there chickens running around? So they had a little party. But once they're starting to free range, I will we'll use less feed, #1. And #2, I will have more garden produce, cast-offs, you know, trimmings, things like that I can feed them. Oh, do they ever love it. So, okay. And this one can be a little harder to stir. So just make sure your spatula is long enough. But we want to get it mixed up real good. I have never, whoa, get back in there. I've never said this in the sourdough series, so I'm going to say it now. You can mark your jar with like a magic marker, a Sharpie. Sharpie comes right off, usually with soap and water. It definitely comes off with a magic eraser. If y'all want to know how to do inexpensive magic erasers, how to get them, I have a video on it. So you can just search for Wellness Homestead or Magic Eraser. I am still using a package that I bought like 2 years ago. All right. You buy them in bulk. And they're not Magic Eraser brand, I should say that. All right, so I got some flour here. Good gravy, Mabel. Yeah, turn your jar and make sure you've scraped down, well, all your sides. Follow your own directions, Kimberly. All right, make a mess, wipe your hands. What I'm gonna do today, just for the simplicity's sake, is try to get the lid off the Sharpie dude. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of mark, let me find a place where it's pretty flat. Probably right here. I'm gonna mark where we start. You can put a rubber band around it, that also works. You know, you don't have to make it like complicated, but that will help you know when it rises. So when do you want to use your sourdough starter? Well, most starter, depends on your starter, will be on the rise within 4 to 6 hours. So I'll be watching to see it rise. Now this is such a huge diameter jar. It's not gonna come way up in the jar, but it will come up some. You wanna use it on the rise because that is when the leavening power is the most active. If you wait until it's all the way to the top, it's exhausted, so to speak. It's rising power. Your bread is going to be dense. Still good. I've used it all sorts of ways, but that is actually the proper way. So I'm going to put him to bed, clean up my mess. I'll see you a little later today when Winston is on the rise. Stay tuned. All right, y'all. So I've been shopping in my long-term pantry because it occurred to me, you know, I keep trying to go through some of the things in my long-term pantry that are nearing their best by date or end of shelf life. I did make a very delicious chicken pot pie type recipe with a cornbread topping versus pie crust that I got that recipe from Miss Gay over at Apron Strings that enabled me to use up some canned chicken that I needed to use, among some other things. So I've long said I need to have a baking day, and then I proceed to like bake 3 times in a week. So I thought, why not, while we're waiting on our sourdough to come up, why not make a couple recipes? So let me swing you around and I'll show you a couple of the things I had to get. So some shelf-stable almond milk. And I got into my freeze-dried items. So I have some freeze-dried jalapenos, some freeze-dried hash browns, some freeze-dried tomatoes. And then y'all, when I cleaned out my pantry, I discovered I had not 1, but 2 quick oats. So I thought, let's make some delicious muffins. I'm also thinking about, y'all, I'll never do the great big like 40 freezer meals because number 1, I don't have the freezer space. Number 2, it's just me. But I like having things that I can grab and thaw out. So I thought, you know, if you took a muffin and you froze it solid, like quick freeze it, like on a cookie sheet, and then once it's hard, you put it in a sealable bag. You know, what are the vacuum sealing bags use? Maybe this isn't a good idea. No, I'm just teasing you. And you could, you know, put like 2 together and just use a small section of your roll of plastic. I think that would be nice to have because I love to entertain. I like to have coffee and tea with my girlfriends. And, you know, this morning I had a friend over and I felt kind of bad because I couldn't even offer her anything because I don't know, I don't have anything baked. And I am trying to stay away from so much sugar. So I think these 2, while not, 1 is sugar-free, of course, but, you know, I'm not going to say they're diet food or anything like that. I think it's a good idea. So let me find You should see my kitchen, y'all. You don't want to. I mean, it's clean. It's just there's lots of stuff. So I got this Pillsbury Family Cookbook for $4. The price is still on it. I think it's 1963. And they have a recipe for oatmeal muffins. And I thought, why not? So I did read through the directions first because I thought, well, then I can preheat the oven, do the muffins first, do the breakfast casserole second, and then maybe by then I could let the oven cool down to proof our sourdough. But this says combine oats and milk, let stand 30 minutes. So I thought, well, let's go ahead and do that, as well as maybe take some time to rehydrate some of the ingredients we're going to be using in our breakfast casserole. So this is going to be a three-fer today, not just sourdough. So the first ingredient that it calls for is 1.25 cups of the quick oats, so not the old-fashioned oats. So let me just use the 1/4 cup and I'll do 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. And y'all, I have to say, you know, I didn't film like every meal like a lot of people did, and it's so helpful. Like Jessica over at Three Rivers Homestead, I didn't do that during the pantry challenge because I eat a lot of leftovers. I don't eat a lot of meat, and sometimes my meals are pretty repetitious. So that's why I didn't. But as I'm finding things to help me use up items in my long-term pantry, I'm going to share it. All right, now we need the milk, which would be 1.25 cups of milk. Y'all, I'm going to use almond milk. Wait for it. Gotta get the almond milk out the fridge that I still have. So I'm not going to say I'm lactose intolerant because I love cheese, and I don't believe I am. Sometimes when I drink cow's milk, I have tummy troubles. You know, I just have an upset stomach. So I really enjoy almond milk. I don't find it unpleasant at all. Oops, I'm slopping, guys. They now make the shelf-stable version, which is really nice, as well as, and I got this at Dollar Tree, or at the $1.25 tree. I think it's really nice that you can just, you know, have it shelf-stable. It's relatively healthy. I do have a video where I made my own. I can do that in a pinch. However, what I realized is when you make your own, you don't have any vitamin A or D in it. So that's problematic for me. I just feel like I need that. So we've got our oats covered. So let's go ahead and set our timer for 30 minutes. I'm gonna set this aside, and then I'm gonna go ahead and rehydrate my potatoes, tomatoes, and jalapenos. So my tomatoes, pardon my reach. Ooh, this was end of season, not enough to can, so I freeze dried them. Ah, y'all, that just smells like fresh tomatoes. That's the thing I love so much about freeze drying. You can retain so much of the nutrition and the flavor of a product. Okay, I think I'm gonna put some jalapenos in there. I'm also gonna use some of my home canned bell peppers. Let's not go crazy, Kim. Sometimes I'm like, I need all the peppers. And then to rehydrate, you just cover them with tap water. And I'm just gonna let them soak for the 30 minutes or so once we get our, yeah, see, these have already partially hydrated that quickly. but the peppers will take a bit longer. So once we're ready to make our muffins, then I will go ahead and do the casserole, drain them. So this is hash brown potatoes. And what I don't know is if a quart will be enough. So I have all the jars today. Y'all, I'm getting through the jars. I'm super proud of myself. Yeah, let's rehydrate that with some water. You know, some freeze-dried items you can just put directly in your food, but let me just say that, for example, an egg casserole, if I were to use all those freeze-dried ingredients, it would just suck all of the water out of the egg, and I think it would be horrible. I wonder if y'all can hear this. It's so windy today, maybe you can't. That's the sound of potatoes drinking up water. So we're gonna let this hang out. I'm gonna clean up my mess here. And then we'll get on to making the muffins first, the casserole second, and by then I think Winston will have risen enough. We'll be ready to start the longer process of making some sourdough bread. I hope you'll stay tuned. Well, you know what they say, the best laid plans. Those potatoes and other freeze-dried items, and I keep saying dehydrated, y'all, it's freeze-dried. They hydrated so quickly. I'm like, you know what? That doesn't make sense to do it in the order I originally spoke of. So I'm going to do the egg casserole first. So I think that is the total beauty of having all the items on your pantry shelf. So I'm going to go ahead and just take all of these tomatoes that are rehydrated and quite sussy. And I'm going to give those a chop. They're pretty soft, so that's not difficult to do. I don't like the looks of you. And then for the jalapeno, y'all, even if you're not a huge spicy, okay, that knife isn't the right one. Food lover, if you dice them nice and thinly, finely, y'all, I need new knives, I do. My son got me these, they're Cuisinart. I guess I need to learn how to sharpen knives appropriately because I don't know how. I'm just going to dice this very, very, very finely. Let me bring you over here. So I'm going to cut this little scarred piece off. But I really love, oh, y'all, sorry about that. I really love having the variety of food on my shelf, whether it's store purchased, whether I've purchased it from Azure in bulk, whether it's home canned, whether it's, you know, just straight up canned food from the store. That's fine for me too. I don't mind that. I got too much jalapeno. It's just, or frozen. It's so nice to be able to cook kind of whatever I want and not be so reliant on the grocery store. You know, I have both the written and the audiobook of A Year Without a Grocery Store. And y'all, I'll leave a link to that if I can remember. Or I think that's enough jalapeno. We'll use you in something else. I'll link it. Y'all, such a helpful, sorry about my hand, such a helpful book if you know nothing about prepping, or maybe you're a person of one. Now this gal is a family person. I guess you call her a family person. You know, a person with a family. That's what I'm trying to say. So, you know, her needs are different than mine, and I still found her book extremely helpful, very relevant, And it has a lot of the basics in it. So I think it would be helpful for anyone. So if y'all remember, I did a video on canning bell peppers and onions. And I also love having this. So just another form of pepper. I'm going to be making a pizza with some of my sourdough pour-off this week. So I thought, how wonderful. I'll open a can of my home canned peppers, one of my home canned onions, and then I can use the leftovers in pizza. I do think that meal planning, which is something I had never done, y'all, I'd just be like, I don't know what I want to eat. I'll just figure it out when the mood strikes me. And, you know, in my working years, that led a lot to eating out when I could afford it, or having cereal for dinner. Just saying. But, you know, planning ahead, then you can say, okay, if I want to make this egg casserole because I'm a little egg rich right now, then how am I going to use the remainder of this jar so I don't, you know, waste it, number one, and number two, clog up my refrigerator with endless partial used jars because I have a very small refrigerator. So it's been very helpful. I've done my meal planning for the week. I'm doing some vegetarian, not vegan meals, and probably some meat meals. So that'll go in the fridge. And y'all, I don't have to take the time to peel an onion, to peel and seed and core the peppers. I don't have to do any of that because I did all that work at once when I was, you know, prepping from the garden. And I'll show y'all what I'm doing, but y'all know how to chop. Thank you, Miss Cindy. Now, I don't have an exact recipe for this. It's called the Kym Wing It recipe, but I think that's the beauty. I get it. Of an egg type casserole. You can put in it pretty much whatever you want. All right. So, you just get the water off of these. What I did here is I drained my tomatoes and jalapenos off, you know, that we just chopped up. I drained the potatoes that we soaked to rehydrate. And then I have my onions and peppers. I'm gonna go straight in to the casserole dish. And y'all, my hands are clean. I mean, you can use a spoon or a spatula, whatever floats your boat. And I am going to include a little of the liquid from the peppers and the onions. You can mix this in a separate bowl, but honestly, why dirty a separate bowl, right? My kitchen looks bad enough as it is. And again, you can mix with a spatula, whatever. Let me push y'all back so you can see. So just get it. It looks delicious, right? So I am going to add here some mozzarella cheese. I have pre-shredded and I froze it. So I decided to go ahead and thaw that out because we'll be doing pizza this week. So let's get some mozzarella in here because cheese makes everything better. Try to break up any clumps. Now for your egg mixture, all I'm going to do is crack a whole bunch of eggs straight in to the cup here. I'm gonna put a little bit of milk in it, season it with some salt and pepper. You could add meat to this if you prefer, like, you know, cooked sausage or bacon. Anything you can think of veggie-wise is good. So yeah, I just sold 3 dozen eggs this morning. So I'm down to like 2 dozen, but my girls are laying well. I mean, and how many eggs does one person need? Let me grab a fork. And a little milk. So, you could also use your freeze-dried eggs. If you have a freeze dryer, just reconstitute them. So let's say I, for whatever reason, didn't have any eggs. I have plenty of freeze-dried on the shelf. You know, I could pretty much tell you that's not going to be enough. I think it's going to take more like a dozen, so I'm going to put some freshly ground black pepper in. Some pink Himalayan salt. And, ooh, that's too much. Maybe a teaspoon is what I put in there. That's more than I usually use, but the cheese has a little bit of salt in. I think I'm going to need another dozen eggs. Okay, maybe not a dozen, but I said dozen, I meant half dozen. I'm going to say maybe a couple more eggs. And y'all, you should see how pretty my girly girls' eggs are. They're just gorgeous. Don't pour that in there, Kym. The yolks are so big and orange and totally different than a store egg. My friend this morning, Antoinette, said, "We just love your eggs." I was so proud of my girls. All right. That'll do. Okay. So I am using an 8x8. You can use whatever size is going to accommodate the amount of ingredients that you want. And I'm going to pop it in the oven. We're going to let that go at 350 degrees until it's set. So at least 30 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and set the timer for 30 minutes. And I'll bring you back when we get ready to start our muffins. Stay tuned. So I kind of got things straightened up a little bit. It was getting to be a wreck in here. So our oats have absorbed all of our milk, so they're nice and thick. Now, please realize that this is a 1963 recipe, and they don't shortcut anything. So there's always a lot of separate bowls. I just do it how it says. And y'all drop me a comment below. Do you find that some of, excuse me, oh, hiccups, I'm sorry. Some of the old-timey recipes suit or taste better than some of the newer things. I certainly do. All right, so what I've done here is in this bowl, I have placed 1.25 cups of all-purpose flour, 4 teaspoons of baking powder, not baking soda, a teaspoon of salt, and then I chose to add a teaspoon of cinnamon. That's not in the recipe, but it won't alter it. In this cup, I have 1/2 cup. I used avocado oil. It says melted shortening or cooking oil. So I think any oil you prefer is fine. 1 egg, 1/3 cup of brown sugar. I added a teaspoon of vanilla extract, a teaspoon of the powdered vanilla extract, because I just think it really improves the taste. And I've stirred it all up. It's gotten nice and thick. And what the actual cookbook says is combine egg, cooking oil, brown sugar, and raisins. I haven't put the raisins in yet. Stir into oatmeal mixture. So let's get our raisins. Am I measuring them, you ask? Why, no. No, I'm not. We're going to stir this into the oatmeal mixture. Kind of plump up those raisins. Sound a bit crunchy. But I always find when you cook with them, they're fine. They rehydrate. Again, something out of my long-term pantry that needs used. Get off there, Mr. Raisin. get all the goodness out here so our recipe comes out appropriate. This says it makes a dozen large muffins or 15 medium muffins. Is there another kind of muffin besides a large muffin? Okay, guys, so this kind of looks like what you would have as baked oatmeal. That's what it looks like. Nice and thick. Y'all, I couldn't stand it. I had to stop and wash the dishes and put them away. I cannot stand a messy kitchen while I'm trying to cook. Now, the next instruction says, make a well in the center, you know, like a little hole in the center of your dry ingredients, and then add your liquid, so your oats mixture that we just finished. And then it does say stir only until dry particles are moist. So you don't want to like beat it, you know, you don't want to use a hand mixer or over stir it or your muffins can get tough. All right. Let me grab the muffin tins here. I have them lined with, I actually prefer the, not the paper liners, the metal ones. I always throw the paper away and just use the metal. I just like it better. The paper sticks and you lose half of your muffin. Ooh, these look really yum, guys. Doesn't take much to get it stirred together. Oop, there's a big dry patch. Make a liar out of me, will ya? How good does that look? Guys, you could use probably any type of dried fruit, like a date. You could put nuts in. Are you gonna work? Let me get 2 spoons. I don't like the way this is going. And it says to fill the muffin tins 3/4 full. Oh yeah, 2 spoons. Y'all, I didn't grow up with cookie scoops, so for me, it's just easier to do 2 spoons. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these loaded up. I will bring you back to show you what they look like. We have about 9 minutes left till I'm gonna check the egg casserole. I'm also gonna take a peek at Winston and see how he's doing to see if we can get our sourdough dough started for its first rise. All right, y'all. I ended up with 15 muffins, and I would call them large, and actually it said 15 to 18, so I hit it right on the money. The oven will have to be turned up to 400. The way my oven works, because I have a split oven, is if you only use the top, which uses less electricity, it heats from the broiler element, so I'll have to pull out the egg casserole, turn up the heat, wait till it beeps, and then we can bake our muffins. I just checked the egg casserole. It's browning nicely, but it's still far, far, far underdone, really jiggly. Yeah, no, I don't want jiggly eggs or half-cooked eggs. So I'm gonna let that go for an additional 5 minutes, and then I'll bring you back when I have the egg casserole and the muffins out of the oven, and then hopefully we'll be close to being ready for, yeah, we should be, for our sourdough starter. All right, see you soon. Okay, y'all, we have some beautiful oatmeal, raisin, and cinnamon muffins. And look at our gorgeous egg casserole. So I'm gonna have some lunch. Guess what I'm having for lunch? Then I will check the sourdough and we'll get on to the first steps on making that bread. So I hope you'll stay tuned. Well, after the community tab vote, I am going to make this a 2-part video. So I apologize. You are gonna have to watch it 2 parts to get to the sourdough baking piece. And I'll insert a clip at the beginning of the video letting you know that the sourdough baking is in part 2. What I wanna say is, that egg casserole was really, really good. The freeze drying aspect of it Everything tasted delicious, including the canned peppers and onions. I didn't put a lot of spices in it so that it would be suitable for breakfast. Really enjoyed that. But the actual star of today's baking has been those muffins. You all need to try them. They're super tender. They're not overly sweet. I will say, even though I had like the larger size, according to the Pillsbury Family Cookbook, mine were done at 15 minutes, done. So keep that in mind. You might need to shorten your baking time. Having a convection oven, sometimes it cooks faster, sometimes it does not. So do me a big favor if you would, go ahead and smash that like button, drop me a comment below. Are you going to stay tuned to part 2 and watch the sourdough series? That will be on Saturday. We'll be actually making a 13-inch Pullman pan, and it's actually probably good that I'm going to do part 2 because let me share with you all, everybody's sourdough starter is going to rise at a different rate. And so I had put like a line with the Sharpie on the jar, and my sourdough is quite healthy, quite active, but my rise happens much later than it's been 5 hours. It's barely budged. I mean, you have to really use your imagination to see that it's gone up at all. So probably when I get up very early tomorrow, usually 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll get started and we will be doing part 2, which you'll see on Saturday. So thank you so much for your time today. Welcome to everyone new. Thank you to everyone who's returning. I will see you all on Saturday. In the meantime, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Be healthy, be well, be blessed.